Jesse Minter and the Chargers defense had a masterclass performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they picked up a huge win in primetime.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. David, we had a huge one. I want to thank all the everydayers out there, as always, for making us your first listen. But to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, because it is Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day in the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. David, 7-3 sounds a lot better than 6-4.
Put some respect on my Chargers name, baby. Let's go. Massive, big-time statement victory by the Chargers. A victory to me that clearly tells the league that this is a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and it was great to have them show us they could beat a big team in a big-time moment. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And David, that is what this shows, right? Like the Chargers, I mean, I'm happy to eat crow today. I didn't think they'd be able to do it. I didn't think they'd be able to find enough offense with the issues that they had on the offensive line. But I also wasn't, expecting a defensive masterclass by the Chargers defense in this one. But it is huge. I mean, look no further back than last year, where the Chargers arguably lost to a worse version of this Steelers team. And this year, the Steelers, the Texans, teams like that were good benchmarks this year. Okay, how will they go against those teams in year 2 of Jim Harbaugh? This is a team that prides itself in its physicality, that bullies other teams. That felt like the Chargers got bullied last year by the Steelers. They did not get bullied on Sunday Night Football.
No, they did not. They did the bullying. I think this is a statement victory. This is a dominant win over a good football team. The victory against the Kansas City Chiefs was big, because that started the year and it was in the division. Very, very important. But to me, I think this is an affirming win. I think it's almost more important because it's towards the middle of the season. And now this is a good win against, not a good win, it's a dominant win against a good Steelers football team, a good opponent. And I think this is the type of win that changes the narrative. It changes the way that the NFL world talks about the Chargers.
Yeah, and I think it should to a certain extent because it shows that their defense can win them games. Like, with the offensive line injuries that they've had, like, you're just not going to be able to win a shootout in every game, and you're not going to be able to rely on your offense to go out there and put up 30, 35 points every week. You just can't. You needed this defense to show that they could do it and go out there and win you games when you need it, and that's exactly what they did. But yeah, now 4-0 in primetime are the Chargers in 2025, which is awesome, right? And also back-to-back dominant primetime performances, actually 3 in a row, because I forgot the Raiders game is Monday Night Football too. 3 primetime performances where the Chargers at night are just going out there and kind of just wrecking teams, and especially, the last 2 at home. But more than that, like, this is 3 wins in a row where the Chargers have had like a non-roller coaster fourth quarter. Like, that is something that should not go unnoticed in this, because even though last week was a 7-point game with the Titans, it's like the Titans never had a ball in the ball in the fourth quarter with a chance to go tie the game. They tacked on a late field goal, right? That made it a 7-point game. But that's 3 weeks in a row where the other team hasn't been able to go down and even tie you. And then this game, besides a garbage time touchdown, they really had nothing going at all. And that was the story to me. I thought the offense was impressive by the way that they gritted it out, because we knew what the kind of obstacles they had to overcome were. At the same time, the story tonight is the Chargers defense and Jesse Minter, because the Boo Birds were coming out for Jesse Minter. He went from, he might not be the Chargers coach in 2026 because he's going to be another head coach, to the Chargers might need to replace Jesse Minter in 2026. And that's kind of the ebbs and flows of being a defensive coordinator specifically. But this was a masterclass. They came out with a game plan that totally got the Steelers off of what their game wanted to be in this one, had them off balance, had them surprised, and really just had them in a chokehold for most of the night.
They really, truly did, and I love the physicality and the way they played defense tonight. Especially, I think Denzel Perriman was a guy that really set the tone with the way he played. The form tackling was beautiful, and I think that really reverberated throughout the rest of this defense, where they had Aaron Rodgers in absolute fits. 51.6 completion percentage, his worst in a game in over 5 seasons. They absolutely abused him, and they did a great job of confusing him and really just not giving him much time to be able to make any plays. They picked him off twice, and they were also able to get them to turn the ball over on downs in the red zone when they had their only real legitimate opportunity to score a touchdown. The Chargers were able to keep them out of the end zone and also kept them to only 73 yards rushing. No matter whether they were trying to throw the ball or whether they were trying to run the ball, the Chargers completely stymied this Steelers football team all night long.
Yeah, and I think it was a big part of this was just, being able to play complementary football. Like the Chargers offense fed off of what their defenders were doing out there, and there's just no other way to look at it. I mean, you have to think the first Chargers touchdown came off of an interception by Aaron Rodgers to R.J. Mickens, which we'll talk about a little bit. But the other time, they get a big 4th down stop in the red zone on the fade to DK Metcalf. The Chargers go down and score a touchdown after that. Like, that is all you can ask for, especially in games like this, especially when you're overmatched really on one side of the ball, to be able to come out and have your defense literally put points on the board for you, right? Because you also opened up the scoring with Khalil Mack jumping all over Aaron Rodgers, who was falling all over himself in the end zone, fumbling it, and Khalil Mack is right there to jump on top of him. And at one point, it was a 3-2 game, and it just felt like that's what this game was going to be like. The final score at one point I thought could be like 11-8 or something along those lines, with just the way it started here. But I did think that you really just got a little bit of everything, right? Like, you got 2 interceptions. Shout out to Deion Henley, who had really incredible coverage carrying DK Metcalf off the field on that first interception, where it looks like it's just a bad throw from Aaron Rodgers, but it's really not. It was the perfect coverage by Deion Henley to get underneath DK Metcalf that made him try to put it over the top to him, and R.J. Mickens was standing there waiting for it. And then Dante Jackson getting a little revenge on his former team. That has to feel even sweeter when the team lets you go after a 5-interception season. Almost got the bold prediction of a Dante Jackson pick 6, but he didn't want a Marlon McCree moment. So he rightfully, was safe and went out of bounds and gave the Chargers offense the ball back with a gigantic lead. But yeah, it was everything. You got the 3 sacks, you got the 2 interceptions, and you got the safety, you got the big red zone 4th down stop. And I thought that was a really big play too, David, for Cam Hart, a guy who's been a little bit up and down as a 5th round pick, had 2 concussions as a rookie, had many shoulder surgeries, obviously. But for him to have that moment going up against one of the bigger, more physically gifted receivers in the NFL on that fade later on in that game to get that 4th down stop, I thought was a big moment by Cam Hart.
It was a big moment, especially because we knew going into this game that it was going to be another game without Tarheeb Still, right? The Chargers probably number 1 corner. And so that, it was going to be Cam Hart that was going to be drawing those tough assignments. And for him to be trusted in that moment against the number 1 wide receiver for the Steelers when they're in a gotta-have-it situation, that's absolutely huge, and it's got to be massive for his confidence. I feel like Cam Hart has quietly been playing really good football almost all season long, and the only thing for him has always been the same thing. Got to stay on the field. The talent, to me, is undeniable. I think when he's on that field, he makes plays. I just hope he can continue to do that, because if he can play like that down the stretch, it's going to be big, big, big things for the Chargers defense.
Yeah, and I'll just go into the silly collection of guys that Joe Ortiz has been able to find in the 5th round, including Oronde Gadsden and probably the Chargers' best corner between him and Dante Jackson. Tarheeb Still, all 5th round picks. And I mean, what can you say? He's come a long way in those big moments, I think, especially down in the red zone when you have to go up against big receivers like they've had to. And Cam Hart had some big moments against Justin Jefferson, too, when they played. But I think when you have those guys like him and Benjamin St-Juste, right, to go along with your smaller, quicker guys like Tarheeb Still and Dante Jackson, it makes sense. Shout out to Nico
Reed, too.
Shout out to Nico Reed. I mean, both those guys, like, it's just sound football. Like, the Chargers really don't give up defensive pass interferences, knock on wood, but, Nico Reed going in a one-on-one situation with a 4-3 guy down the field, doesn't panic, gets his head around, and gets a huge pass breakup. Cam Hart against DK Metcalf. If you give it up, you give up that touchdown on 4th down. Hard not to be too in the moment there, to be too caught up to turn around and find the football. That could be a penalty if he doesn't turn his head around.
Yeah.
But him turning his head around is what gets them to stop and gets them off of the field in that big moment. So young secondary guys stepping up with guys like Tony Jefferson and Tarheeb still off the field was huge. But they'll have bigger tests and they'll have better offenses to go against. This showed the Chargers defense can win them games, which is going to be huge in the long haul for them making the playoffs and potentially getting a win once they get there. But we do have to talk about the Chargers offense because I thought they did enough with what they had going for them, and also Keenan Allen breaking the record and the Chargers making sure he did. All that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
I also need to tell you guys about Rippling, because if you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promises to make work easier, SaaS, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice, that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software that you created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives company one more source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. David, the defense rightfully gets their flowers after this performance because the Chargers offense could have had a D- game and feeling, and they could have probably won this game with just how well that defense was performing. And I think that we still have to talk about the offense, though, which went into the game with, not a perfect execution or game plan, but knowing kind of what their deficiencies were going to be. It took them a little while to get things going. We knew they were going to have to use the quick passing game, to find any success against this pass rush. And boy, did they, right? They were incredibly quick throwing the football. But I thought my main takeaway from the Chargers offense was we knew this was going to be a really tough matchup. And for the most part, they kind of gritted it out and found a way.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, I like that you touched on the quick passing game because, they were fantastic with the quick passing game. It was a huge part of how they were able to sustain drives when they did sustain drives. This is from Next Gen Stats. Justin Herbert averaged 2.21 second to throw in Week 10, the quickest of his career, and faced just a 30% pressure rate. Herbert completed 15 of 21 quick pass attempts for 145 yards and his only touchdown. So it was a big catalyst to help kind of be an extension of the running game, although the running game was effective too. But Justin Herbert getting the ball out of his hands quickly, obviously part of the game plan, and it was big, and it was very successful for them tonight.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the hard thing they were going to face going into this, is not just, having to use the quick passing game, but having the other team know that you're going to use the quick passing game, right? And that's one big advantage the Steelers had. They knew they had a huge matchup with their defensive line against the Chargers' offensive line, and the Chargers still found a way. It took them a little bit, but they still found a way. Justin Herbert still sacked 5 times in this game and hit a bunch more, and that 30% pressure rate is going to be a little bit flawed, I guess, because of how often he was getting rid of the ball so quickly that he was doing it before pressure could even be generated. Yeah. On those metrics. So 20 for 33, 220 yards and 1 touchdown. Did have a play that should have been picked off outside of that, did really good to, take care of the football. Like, to be able to take care of the football the way he did with the pressure that was in his face and the hits that he knew he was going to have to take is super impressive. And I'm not going to apologize for a Steelers defender dropping a pick, because the Chargers have had terrible pick luck so far this year. They were bound to get one back, and they did early on. But I mean, I think early in the games, the last few weeks, though, pass to Keenan Allen that gets almost picked off, the Lat McConkey pick six that's called back. Have to figure something out earlier in the game to make sure you're not giving it away too early. But
yeah,
it's so hard to do, and he did it pretty easily. But I do think you're right. Like, Amani Vidal, David, was very good and continues to show he needs to be still a part of the offense when Omarion Hampton comes back.
He absolutely should be. I mean, 25 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown, a long of 12, but he ripped off several chunk runs. I mean, it seems like whenever he was running to the outside, he wasn't, super effective in the middle, running up the middle until a little bit later on in the game, but he was really attacking the edges, and he was getting really good production, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-yard runs to the outsides, whether it was left or right. He was having a lot of success and really brought some much needed balance to this offense to help protect Justin Herbert because of that vaunted pass rush that they were sending at him all night.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Kamani is, like, you can't really look at the box score for this game. It's going to tell you 25 carries for 95 yards. A lot of those carries coming, in garbage time, where everyone knew, outside of the Keenan Allen little pass, that it was going to be them running the football to try to burn clock. So not really worried about his 3.8 yards per carry in this game, but 108 total yards. Another game from her surpassing 100 plus yards. He's now done it more than Omarion Hampton did, right? Obviously, he has missed a bunch of time at this point, but like, I thought when there was a sliver to get through there, it felt like every time he was ripping off 7, 8, 9 yards. And I think that was huge. I think he had really good burst through the hole. When he had a slice of space, he was going to find it, and really just never took big losses. Even when the blocking collapsed, usually found a way to get 1 or 2 yards and try his best to keep the Chargers ahead of the sticks. And also another red zone touchdown, which that's the big thing for this game. The Chargers getting in close, being able to cash in a couple of touchdowns to really separate themselves in this game. But the big moment for the Chargers offense, David, might have not even been about this game. It was about a career achievement, and we cannot go any further without talking about Keenan Allen. And not only Keenan Allen breaking the Chargers all-time receptions mark, but I love the fact that the Chargers got it for him, right? Like, this game was well out of reach. The Chargers could have just run the ball every single time until the game was over. But every time they went back out there, I just kept tweeting like, man, this time, get him the catch. It's prime time. Antonio Gates is in the building. Give him that catch to break the record so we can all celebrate that tonight. The Chargers did that, David. And I mean, a hat tip to Keenan Allen, one of the best in franchise history.
Keenan Allen has been an absolute pleasure to watch. You and I have had the honor of watching him his entire career. Been able to see all of the amazing catches that he's made and how reliable he has been throughout his career. I love that this record was tied on a third down conversion. It's just so Keenan, so third and Keenan for that to happen. And then, of course, for him to break the record on a play that he drew up, that he told the coaches that he wanted to run, and that's how he got it. And I couldn't be happier for a guy who absolutely will be walking into Canton one day.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I know he's definitely a Chargers Hall of Famer. Him being a full-blown Hall of Famer is a discussion for another time, but I'm not going to take anything away from him. I mean, I think it's hard always when you're comparing eras against each other, right? So I think it's really hard to compare him with guys like Charlie Joyner or Lance Allworth, who had cases of being the best receivers in the league in their time, in a different time, right? Sure. But he passes all those guys. He passes Kellen Winslow. He passes now Antonio Gates, who, is one of the best tight ends in NFL history. And I think that's the weird thing about Keenan Allen is I don't know if he was ever a top 3 receiver at any one point. He was always around a top 10 and, just a bona fide Pro Bowl level player, a guy that was just always one of the best in the league, even if he was never the best guy in the league. And I think there's just something about his consistency to be able to do the things that he has been able to do, holds a couple NFL records with receptions and things like that as well. He'll always have his slice of history, and I think that for him to be a third-round pick out of Cal, to be kind of overlooked coming out of the draft and be able to put up the career that he's been able to do is nothing short of special. Like, he is, one of the best in Chargers history, and, like, straight up of this generation, in this century, he is undoubtedly the best Chargers receiver ever. So we're not going to compare eras, but like in the last 50 years, there's never been anyone like Keenan Allen that's suited up in those lightning bolts that plays wide receiver. So shout out to Keenan Allen. Just a really, really big time performance. And he has been kind of faded out of the offense a little bit. I think his time will come again. Just a lot of mouths to feed offensively, how that is. But just a great, shout out to Ladd as well. Ladd has a big game, kind of returning where he should be as the number one receiver on this roster. He hits 100 yards and gets that breakaway. I mean, that Justin Herbert throw to him for the 58-yarder.
It was disgusting. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it was, totally covered. It reminded me of the Broncos' Keenan Allen touchdown late in that game that tied it, right? Where it's just like, I'm just going to give my guy a chance. Great catch by Ladd, but he gets over 100 yards again in this one. And finally has that big breakout long one we've been looking for. Definitely going to take some heat in the meeting rooms, though, when he couldn't run away from 30-plus-year-old Jalen Ramsey. But conversation for another time. We still have more to get into, including that by the numbers, how big of a boost this was to the Chargers' playoff chances, and also something we're all holding our breaths about right now, which is the availability of Oronde Gadsden II, who had to leave this game with a knee injury. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. It's why it's the best out there. But another great thing about FanDuel is you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. And that's why I always use FanDuel. There's nothing better than being able to cook up parlays with the boys. But I'm very interested to see what the line's going to be. Just kidding. It's out already. The Chargers traveling to Jacksonville. They are going to open up as 2.5-point favorites for a chance to get to 8-3 going into the bye week, which would just be absolutely gigantic. So you can bet on that and so much more. Right now, FanDuel is also giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. David, we still have more to get into, including just how big of a game this was for the Chargers' playoff chances, and I think even just narrative-wise, kind of what they could do if they get there, because I think we were at a point in both of us, honestly, where it's like, okay, the Chargers may get to the playoffs. They kind of might back their way up into the playoffs. They need to get to the magic number of 10, and it does feel like this win kind of warps the narrative at least a little bit on that, because the Steelers were a playoff team last year. We'll see if they are this year, right? We still have to see. But now you're talking about 2024 playoff teams. You beat the Steelers now, right? Who were there last year. Vikings, obviously, it was Carson Wentz, but that's a playoff team from last year. You beat the Chiefs, who you hadn't beat with Patrick Mahomes since 2021. You beat the Broncos, who are leading the division and only have 2 losses the entire season. That was a huge thing the Chargers couldn't do. To see them get a win against a playoff team from last year and a team that will probably be over 500 again this year, that is something, right? That does mean something. But by the numbers, it's even more important than that, because this is, I saw Stephen Haglund put it out there, the Athletics playoff simulator now gives the Chargers an 87% chance to make the playoffs. Before the game, it said that the Chargers' chances would go down to 61% with a loss. This was huge. 6-1 now versus the AFC. You're still undefeated in your division, but this game goes a long way towards being a playoff team in 2025.
Daniel, this is the next evolution, right? This is the evolution of what the Chargers want to be, right? The first year was all about beating the teams that you're supposed to beat and being competitive against the better teams. Now it's beating the teams you're supposed to beat and beating some of the better teams in the league. And the Chargers proved that they can do that with this win. This was a big, massive statement win, and I think it does change the way that we see the Chargers and we see how they can play and how they can compete so far down the stretch, because they figured this out. They put this together, and not only did they put this together, they did it in dominant fashion.
They did, and we're not used to seeing that. We're not used to having, kind of easy games, especially against 2024, playoff teams, especially with teams kind of no matter what the quarterback situation is. And in this game, obviously, you're getting an older one, but you're going up against a Hall of Famer. But we talked about it a little bit the other day of just like, is it worth making the playoffs if you're going to lose? I'm sure there's an argument for, hey, get the best draft pick. You can do all that stuff, whatever. The whole point of getting someone like a Jim Harbaugh is in Justin Herbert's first however many seasons, he only made the playoffs once, right? Last year was only the second time he made the playoffs. It was the first year under Jim Harbaugh. You have to turn this team into a team that makes the playoffs every single year unless Justin Herbert's not out there for a big portion of it, period, right? Josh Allen, the Bills don't miss the playoffs. The Ravens don't miss the playoffs. The Chiefs don't miss the playoffs, right? They don't miss the Super Bowl. They don't miss the playoffs. You're trying to turn yourself into a team that year in and year out, guys in, guys out, are going to be a playoff team every year. That's how you ensure Justin Herbert gets those chances in the playoffs to really rewrite kind of what the narrative has been about him, but more importantly, a full foundational switch from what you've been. You know the last time the Chargers made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons? It was 2008, 2009. Those are the last two times. That's the last time the Chargers went back-to-back years. It's been 15 years of not being able to do that. And the Chargers have a chance to do it this year, which I think is a big deal. And you know, no matter what happens once they get there, you make it and see what happens, because all you need is a ticket to the dance.
That's right.
You get to decide how long you want to stay. So we do have to talk about something a little worse to talk about, honestly. But it's Aaron Rodgers having to leave with a knee injury. So tons of speculation online. I'm not going to speculate on, hey, okay, we did this, so that means this. Hard to say at this point. I think what's not hard to say is how important he has been to this team. And he wasn't having a great game on Sunday night before he had to leave this game. But David, it can't be understated how important it'll be for Aaron Rodgers, who left this game with a knee injury and did not return, for him to not have to miss extensive time.
Yeah, you just hope it's not something like that season ending, right? Obviously, whenever you have anything to do with the knee, it's a scary situation, because a lot of the times those type of injuries take a lot longer to heal. The only thing we do know is he hurt his knee basically smacking it up against a Steelers defender, and I'm sure they're going to do some imaging, get the MRI stuff done, and we could just hope and pray that he is going to be okay and that he will be able to come back, because he's been so fantastic to watch. He's been a huge focal point. Yeah, he wasn't great tonight. He had a couple of drops, but that doesn't change how important he is to the offense, because this guy's been a security blanket for Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is looking for him, and he has made the plays more often than not. Not just the routine plays, but he's made the big splash plays as well. Aaron Rodgers is a big part of this offense.
Yeah, I mean, he gets a pass on me for a rough night, you know, against a team that's notoriously physical. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen, right? When you rely very heavily on a rookie, sometimes you're going to have to live with the rookie mistakes, and the pros of continuing to feed Aaron Rodgers have far outweighed what the cons are to it. So no, you know, problem with his game there. Not worried about him by any means in that kind of way. But I would say that he has been one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL over the last month and a half.
Period.
Like, if you're saying he's anywhere outside of the top 5, and we're talking about of everybody, not just rookies, you're crazy. Like, he's been insane. And, you know, Colson Loveland's been going off. Tyler Warren's had a great season. Aaron Rodgers is right there, and that dude is a 5th-round pick. Those guys are 1st-round picks. He has been the truth so far, and I do think that as far as this injury goes, like, it just sucks, because, like, we were sitting here, you know, same time last week, trying to, you know, hope that Joe Alt wasn't dealing with something serious. So you never know. I thought he had a high ankle sprain, and potentially they'd have a chance to get him back, because he was coming off of that, and then he has to get season-ending ankle surgery. So I'm not trying to inspire false hope for Aaron Rodgers. I do think that whenever you see a contact injury, as messed up as it sounds, as opposed to a non-contact injury, it makes you feel like, okay, there's a glimmer of hope there, because at least you can see why it's hurt. You don't want somebody planting, going a different direction, and then they just by themselves fall down. That's usually a terrible sign. Yeah, we'll see. By the time Aaron went out, the Chargers kind of had the game handily. So, like, I don't know, you know, how much of that was he couldn't go back in. We know he didn't go back in, but we'll have to figure out this week what the severity is of that, because he is so important to what the Chargers want to do offensively, especially the quick game with the offensive line isn't ever going to be back at 100% this season. So let's get to one last thing here, David. The special teams, which we talked about last week, like, they can't be a disaster. Like, you just have too many deficiencies elsewhere on the roster for your special teams to be a net negative. And I would say they were a net positive on Sunday night.
Yeah, they made some good tackles out there in coverage. Dicker made a 59-yard field goal with ease. He did miss a 55-yarder, but that's fine. Honestly, over 50, his percentage is still fantastic. And Josh Harris is back and providing his all-pro long snapping. No issues there. Back to a nice, clean operation for the special teams unit.
Yeah, like it wasn't flawless, right? Like it started out like it was going to be what lost them the game initially. I mean, the first kickoff of the game, Cameron Dicker kicks it straight out of bounds and gives it to the Steelers on the 40-yard line. You're like, okay, you're the most accurate kicker of all time. I expect you to be able to not kick it out of bounds. I don't think it's crazy to ask, but and then immediately after that, the Chargers get the stop defensively. Chargers have to punt, and then J.K. Scott shanks a punt that doesn't even make it to midfield. And basically spots the Steelers 3 points there. I don't even think they got a first down, and they were able to kick that field goal. So hard to pin that on the Chargers defense. But then they came back, right? And they were very solid for the rest of the game, including, Cameron Dicker tying his career high like you talked about. It's crazy because, he hasn't missed, an over 50-yarder this year. And when he goes out there for a 50-plus yard attempt, you just know it's money. So it's not like it once was where you're like, man, maybe there's like a 50-50 shot, maybe less, that this guy makes this 50-plus yarder, and now he's out here hitting 59-yarders. So he doinked one off the left upright. I'm going to give him a pass on that one. The only other miss he had this year was, I think, due to a bad snap by Rick Lovato that J.K. Scott handled, but the operation was a little clunky, and he missed it. This one hit off the upright and went out, right? That's sometimes how it goes. I'm glad the doink didn't come in a more important moment, obviously, but
they also
I think the other part of it is, so I was going to say, I think Josh Harris to that point, Steelers did get close to a couple of those punts. If it's not Josh Harris in this game, then one of those might get blocked. I mean, J.K. Scott had to pick a couple of them off the rug last week and barely got them off. Those ones might not get off this week. But J.K. Scott, even after the shank, unleashed a punt from hell, some sidewinding spinner late on in that game that, you could tell that the punt returner just had no idea where it was going to end up. He looked uneasy the entire time that he was going for it, tried to catch it well in front of his body, and it was a muff, and the Chargers offense was able to pick that up. Delshon Phillips able to scoop that up. But, this is what you need. This is what you need from this special teams unit, and I think that just kind of changes the complexion. I think it's hard not to think without Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater that the ceiling for this team, is lower for sure. But it doesn't mean that, it's, can't win a playoff game low potentially, because if the Chargers defense can play like they did tonight, and we'll see what they can do against some better offenses, they'll get tested before this season's over. But if they can do that and the Chargers can win them some games, now, the magic number of 3 wins with 7 games left to play you feel really good about that. But also just their chances of, beating a Jacksonville, beating a Dallas or a Houston. None of these games felt like gimmies with kind of what the Chargers had going on. Now it feels like the Chargers are going to be in it, David. Every week they're going to give the other team a good shot, and they can beat some good teams even with the way this roster is constituted right now.
And they're still in it for the division too. They're only 1 game back from the AFC West crown, and they still have that advantage of being 3-0 in the AFC West. So this win right here was huge. It allows them to keep pace and just wait there in waiting for the Denver Broncos to slip up, because I think, we've seen some fraudulent things with the Broncos out there. Man. I think they definitely are not as good as that 8-2 record shows, and I feel like they are bound to be exposed very soon, and the Chargers just need to be right there ready to pounce and take that crown right from them.
I mean, they've had about as unreal of a start as they could possibly have, and they must have to kick themselves knowing the Chargers are still, even with the disasters that they've had, are only 1 game behind them with the tiebreaker over them. Let's also remember this. The Broncos still have 2 games against the Chiefs. They have not played each other yet. I mean, more than likely, outside of a tie, one of those teams is going to have either, 2 losses more than they have right now, or they're going to split it and each add a loss. The Chargers have everything ahead of them. If they, they're not going to win out, I'll say that now, but they have the destiny in their hands, and they have a game against each of these teams to go and kind of prove it, or to be a pivotal moment later on in the season that potentially gives you a chance at the AFC West crown that the Chiefs have won 9 consecutive seasons, and the Chargers are right in it. And now it's like, man, if you can get this win in Jacksonville, get into the bye week at 8-3 with a game against the Raiders coming up after that, chance to get a little healthier, get Omarion Hampton back, maybe we start feeling a little bit differently about this team. But we want to know what you guys think, and tomorrow is Buy or Sell Tuesday, so you can get it off your chest by giving us your biggest Charger storylines or overreactions at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Give us your buy or sells or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers buy or sell. We want to hear the fans coming out for this one. It was a big time win. And thank you guys for making us your first listen and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. We appreciate you guys. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. Especially have those notifications on for when late night editions come out like this one. But huge win. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow with Buy or Sell Tuesdays. Let's hear from you. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.